It was one of the hardest fought contests in a bitter campaign. After a quarter of a century in the Australian Parliament, one of its most combative figures, former Prime Minister Tony Abbott, faced the fight of his political life.
And the way we do it is we vote 1 for Zali, we vote 10 for Tony, we fill in all the boxes, and we start buying champagne tomorrow.
This is about people coming together to say we've got to change everything. We've got to change the politics, the change we live. And I think that Tony Abbott's time in politics has come and gone.
For both Abbott and the Liberal Party, everything was at stake.
There are many people who are dyed-in-the-wool Liberal people who genuinely believe that the only way the Liberal Party can survive is if they're thrashed at this election. The only time you'll ever repair the house is after it's burnt down. I don't subscribe to that view, but it is a view. So to come to your question, yes, it is a very seminal moment in the history of the Liberal Party.
On Saturday, the Morrison government was triumphant. Tony Abbott was not.
Tonight on Four Corners, how the battle for Warringah was lost and won. We take you inside the campaign that brought down a former Prime Minister and ask what it means for the Liberal Party and Australian politics.
It's often said that all public lives end badly, but I'm certainly not going to let one bad day spoil 25 great years.
At Balmoral Beach on Sydney's affluent lower North Shore, a crowd is gathering for a Sunday morning charity event. Among the contestants, a well-known competitor. In this part of the world, Tony Abbott's among friends.
Good, good. Yeah, I do real well. Alex, Charlie. How you going? So where have you got your tow ropes? Isn't it tow? Come on, don't have years.
The former Prime Minister has notched up 25 years as the MP for Warringah. Now he's in his toughest race ever.
I want one of your t-shirts, mate. Well, that can be arranged. You've got a few supporters like. I might actually try to swim behind it.
The election is about to be called. The morning's newspaper reports that Tony Abbott's struggling to hold on to his seat.
There's a lot of excitement about it because people will play with the excitement.
Yeah. Oh, well, good luck.
Thank you so much.
In Manly, about 500 people have turned out for the campaign launch of Tony Abbott's challenger, Zali Steggall. They've each paid $70 to be here, including local celebrity, writer Tom Keneally.
Yeah. I met you before at the football. This is very bad for you to be filmed with an old pinko like me.
We are a broad trial.
Yes.
A former Olympic skier turned family law barrister, Zali Steggall works the room like a pro.
Thank you so much for coming. Oh, so excited. Well, it is exciting. It's not often that we all have this kind of momentum and enthusiasm before an election. It's a nice change.
She might be a first-time candidate, but it's a well-resourced operation. Team Zali has already raised hundreds of thousands of dollars in donations and merchandise sales. And more than 900 volunteers have signed up for the Turquoise Army to help her out.
How are you all feeling? Good, some good energy in the room. We've got a big night ahead as we launch the official beginning of the campaign for Zali Steggall, the next member for Warringah.
Now, this is our time. We can all feel it. Our community is standing up. We are making our voices heard. You only have to look around the room tonight to see how excited and passionate we all are about a new future for Warringah.
1, 2, 3, big Zali! 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 Zali Steggall, ladies and gentlemen, all right!
You're listening to Australia's #1 broadcaster, Alan Jones.
I'm saying we should all vote for Australia. I don't care who you vote for, but I'm voting for Australia.
There are powerful voices in the media also taking sides.
What is taxed from the... She's a token candidate. She was a good athlete and all the rest of it, but we've got to get away from all these so-called glamour candidates that people think they can line up. Abbott's been an outstanding local member. He's been an outstanding Prime Minister, in my opinion, and he has... People have seen him. He's everywhere. He goes to the footy, he goes to the beach, he goes fighting fires and all that sort of stuff. People know him, and his reputation will stand him in good stead.
There's a lot of people out there, I think, like me, who look at Tony Abbott and go, well, look, you know, you're a good family man, and you know, you've got, you know, if the light's right and the wind's blowing for it, you could pass for a good bloke, and I get on well with him. But all of that aside, your politics are from another time, and they're destructive politics. I mean, seriously, please, nobody serious disputes climate change.
Tony Abbott's position on climate change sowed the seeds of the grassroots movement to unseat him. The insurgency took hold among disillusioned Liberal voters.
One of the instigators of the campaign was Mossman resident Julie Gianesini.
The north and the south of the Spit Bridge.
I joined the Liberal Party in 2003. I even volunteered in Tony Abbott's campaign office. I handed out for the Liberal Party. My membership lapsed in about 2007, but I then rejoined in August of last year following a trip overseas. I decided to come back, pledged to do something about climate change, and rejoin the Liberal Party to try and force climate action within the party.
Late last year, Julie Gianesini began her campaign to oust Abbott after a discussion with him about climate change.
He told me that he doesn't believe that the science of climate change is settled. He believes that climate has been changing for over the centuries, and he doesn't necessarily believe that it's man-made and caused by CO2. So I decided that I had to reach out to everyone who was interested in removing Abbott. And so every time I heard about someone who seemed to be interested in the same motive, I contacted them and I met them and we brought them into the fold.
At the same time in Manly, surfboard manufacturer Mark Kelly was building his own network of people dissatisfied with Tony Abbott.
There were 6 guys or 8 guys who live in the street, and I sent them an email. The subject was Men of Warringah. And I just to express some frustration that I had with Tony Abbott to them and said, what are we going to do about it? And then literally 9 months later, I started this Facebook group, which was Let's Not Re-elect Tony Abbott. And from there, we started to sell some T-shirts, or make some T-shirts.
Mark Kelly started selling them on his Facebook page.
The main comment you got was, where'd you get that T-shirt from? And we were like, wow, we're onto something here. So one day I just was, I'm doing all my stuff, and then a lady, Julie, rang me and said, hey, I really like what you're doing. We're doing some other things. I'm from Mossman, explained who she was. Would you like to have a cup of tea?
Another player in the push to unseat Tony Abbott was solar farm developer Angus Gemmell.
I voted for Tony Abbott in 2013, but then became progressively dismayed by a number of his moves, including Captain Calls, Prince Philip being one of them, and knighting a royal member of an overseas family. So, but it was his review of the renewable energy target which led to an investment drought in large-scale renewables.
The anti-Abbott groups joined forces and gave themselves a name, the Coalition of the Willing.
This is the coalition of willing to remove Abbott. And at that very first meeting, it was, what can we do? What are the processes? We established fairly quickly that we really needed to find an independent, that in the area that we lived in, a Labor candidate wasn't going to get in. So we seriously needed to look at finding an independent and what were the steps involved.
What are the sort of numbers we're getting of people clicking through on this?
The first step was to put together a professional campaign team. The group hired community activist Louise Hislop and former Labor Party staffer Anthony Reid, who'd run Kerryn Phelps' successful campaign for Wentworth.
Kerryn's win in Wentworth was very motivational. I remember just thinking what a similar sort of electorate they were to us, quite a wealthy one, well-educated, and I just thought that if they can do it, there's no reason in the world why we can't do it.
How did you...
Advertising executive Doff Dickinson was brought on to craft the campaign pitch.
The advertising team started to develop the essential information as to what is our electorate, who lives there, how will they vote, how do they think, how do we get to them. So we did all of that to understand what the nature of the task and really get on top of the kind of message that would resonate in the electorate.
The next step was to find a candidate.
Zali, on around about the 21st of December, bought 4 or 5 T-shirts for her family. I thought that's pretty cool. And then asked her if she wanted to be in the Instagram campaign. She said, yeah, sure, she'll get a photo to me in the next couple of days. And so on the 1st of January 2019, Zali was our Instagram post.
When I decided to do that post, I was actually pretty much already thinking, I'm putting my hand up, because that was actually my first step in saying it's time to offer change.
The campaign team met in Mark Kelly's Brookvale warehouse.
We had all the different people around the table who were interested in backing Zali, all the different groups, and we got to a point to say, OK, is she going to be the one? And so once everyone said, yep, OK, I'm in, I don't think we can find anyone better than Zali, then we all pushed the button.
It was a blank canvas. There is no independent brand, so we developed the colour turquoise in conjunction with psychologists who said this was a great colour for the people who live by the ocean. Sort of neutral, not green, not liberal, somewhere in between. And it just suited Zali very well.
As Zali Steggall's campaign got underway, Tony Abbott took aim at some of its organisers.
Tony Abbott has attacked me personally on Twitter, calling me a fake Liberal and a left-wing entryist. How does it feel to be called a fake Liberal? Very annoying. Now, if he wants to go out and call all of these people who are supporting this campaign fake Liberals, he's just going to find out how many fake Liberals are about to oust him on May 18.
Everyone. Earlier this morning, I visited the Governor-General here in Canberra and he accepted my advice for an election to be held on the 18th of May. We live in the best country in the world.
We're live at DYRSL, and as you know, Tony Abbott has got a hell of a fight on his hands. He is fighting to retain the seat of Warringah. The independent candidate Zali Steggall is putting up a hell of a fight.
This is a really uphill battle, and if they were to lose what has been such a secure seat in Warringah, this would be an icon loss for the coalition.
Mossman is the centre of affluence in Warringah, a traditional stronghold for Tony Abbott, But on the streets, there's a mood for change.
From my knowledge of Mosman people, they will always pretend to go for somebody else. But when the crunch is down, they will always go back to their roots and they will vote Tony Abbott in regardless, which is a pity because he really doesn't represent us at all.
I've lived overseas for the last 8 years, been back for the last year, and the turmoil that's happening both in Canberra and locally is quite evident. And so, for me personally, I'd love to see change. And I think someone like Zali represents that.
Zali Steggall's putting climate change front and centre of her campaign.
The reality is it's one of the main reasons why he has to go. He has solely been responsible for being one of the biggest handbrakes on this country's ability to put in place long-term climate change strategy.
Zali Steggall live with me here at Manly Wharf this morning. We've got chickens, we've got Tony Abbott posters behind us.
People tell me they will not be voting for him and they want change.
Morning, mate. How are you? Oh, look,
yes, Rosie, even Rosie's woken
that's
up.
very important, isn't it? G'day, Rosie. How are you? Good to see you.
You too.
Thanks for being here this morning.
Pleasure.
Anyway, we can but remain optimistic, eh? Hi, Laura. How are you?
Good to see you.
Welcome to beautiful Manly.
Wonderful volunteers.
They are good. Yeah, they are good.
It's early days, but Abbott's sensing the mood of the electorate.
All I know is that a lot of people who I would normally think would be Liberal voters seem to be undecided and or unhappy.
Yeah, right.
So that's why I'm doing everything I can to make sure nothing goes wrong. Yeah, that's right.
Yeah, right.
And it's like quiet. Busy, no worries.
Mr. Abbott, how are you feeling about this campaign? Look, it's a tough campaign, that's obvious, and a lot of people have spent a lot of time trashing my reputation. That's politics, that's life. Politics is a contest, so it is going to be a particularly tough contest this time, but I'm better prepared than ever before, and after a couple of decades in politics, there's not much that I haven't already seen.
People are casting this as a bit of a make or break moment for you and your political career. How much pressure does that put on you?
Well, obviously, every election is critical. If you lose just once, you're out of the parliament, and obviously if you're out of the parliament, you are an ex in a way that you aren't if you remain in the parliament. So look, this is completely critical. It is, as I've said, the fight of my life, and I think I'm up for it.
How much is it going to cost the Liberal Party to fight off this challenge?
Well, the numbers are not yet known, to be quite honest, so I couldn't prematurely talk about those, but it's the biggest sum of money that has ever been spent by Tony in an electorate campaign.
Former Prime Minister Tony Abbott says that he'd be willing to be drafted back into the Liberal Party leadership if the coalition loses.
Less than a week into the campaign, the thorny issue of Abbott's leadership ambition hits the news after he's asked at a community forum if he'd try to become leader again if the coalition loses. He rules out challenging, but is open to being drafted.
If my party colleagues wanted me back, they would have to invite me. If they wanted me back, they could have me, but I'm certainly not going to try to shoulder anyone aside.
The Liberal Party is keen to downplay the story.
He is not running for the seat of Warringah with the intention to then follow that with a bid for the leadership. What he's saying simply is, I'm not doing that. I'm running for the seat of Warringah, and then what will be, will be. I think Tony accepts that he was an outstanding opposition leader. I think he accepts that he's the outstanding Prime Minister, but that's in the past.
Sean
Tony Abbott's facing another formidable opponent in Warringah.
Okay. Welcome, everyone. First of all, our regular Tuesday team.
The activist group GetUp is launching an all-out assault on the former Prime Minister with carefully crafted messages.
The vote in Warringah is likely to be close. We're not calling it, okay? So who you vote for will really count. Don't waste that vote. And finally, that we recommend you vote against Tony Abbott. Okay? Any questions?
GetUp says it has about 13,000 members in the seat of Warringah, roughly the membership of the entire New South Wales Liberal Party.
They think there's 3 houses here.
There's only one letterbox.
Several hundred of them have signed up to door knock.
They're a block of flats, actually.
Yeah. So they're not always welcome.
Oh, but we're not a political party.
Destroying our government. Okay, I think there's no one in.
GetUp will spend up to $300,000 campaigning against Tony Abbott.
I take them everywhere with me.
Tony Abbott is one of the key leaders, along with Peter Dutton of the hard right faction. Our members voted them as the top 2 priorities for our election campaign. So we're really focused in there of working with the community, working on the issues that people in Warringah and around the country care about, and holding Tony Abbott to account for the destructive role that he's had in Australian politics over the last 25 years.
Hey mate, do you want a halibut card?
GetUp are at the top of the activist list. They are the most powerful political organisation outside the union movement in Australia. Bill Shorten was an inaugural board member. This is all part of a well-thought-out plan. This is not something that just organically grew from some disaffected community groups. This isn't about grassroots issues. This is about creating a political machine, and that's what GetUp is.
A new conservative lobby group, Advance Australia, is trying to counter GetUp's campaign.
We want to advance, defend and protect mainstream values and freedoms. And we needed a voice for those who felt like politics was leaving them behind, that politicians were not delivering on their values and freedoms, and that's why we put Advance Australia together.
Advance Australia is spending close to $200,000 in Warringah. They're paying for ads attacking Zali Steggall's political allegiances.
We thought it was indeed the correct thing to do, to highlight Zali's voting record, and she hasn't voted Liberal for the last 20 years, but at a federal election, but says that she's Liberal. You know, those 2 facts are incongruent.
Advance Australia has created a character, Captain GetUp, to spread its message. But one of its attacks on Zali Steggall is criticised as sexist and tasteless, and it's forced to apologise.
The kind of claims Advance Australia are making, I think they're not surprising. I always expected the campaign to turn dirty. Of course that's how they're going to want to paint me, because I'm their worst nightmare. I'm a small L Liberal, I'm a moderate.
Help! Tony! Someone's drowning!
Look, I think you'll find that the science isn't settled on that.
GetUp's campaign in Warringah also falters when an attack ad backfires badly.
I think I've given you the response you deserve.
Well, it was tacky beyond belief, and it was really demeaning to everyone who is a surf lifesaver. And there's something like 150,000 volunteer surf lifesavers around the country. All of them had their work mocked by that ad. I frankly can't believe that GetUp ever thought it was a good idea. Just shows the appalling judgment that the people behind GetUp have.
This election, I believe, has been a watershed moment because third-party campaigning is here to stay. The reason it's necessary is our political parties have failed. The chaos that you've seen in Canberra since the 2007 federal election on both sides of the political spectrum has actually hurt politics, public debate, and the very contest of ideas that we're so passionate about.
On Good Friday, Tony Abbott takes a rare break from campaigning in Warringah to attend a church service in Western Sydney. The Prime Minister's also there.
I'll see you out there soon. Well, yeah, okay. Cheers, mate.
My brothers and sisters, let us pray for peace and harmony.
The Liberal faithful know that an upset in Warringah would mark the end of a difficult chapter for the party.
Glory be to the Father, and to the Son, and to the Son.
If he survives, then I guess there's the potential for his career to go into another phase.
Who died for our salvation.
If he doesn't, then I guess we see the end of an era, and it's the end of an era that involves not just Tony Abbott, but I think Malcolm Turnbull as well. That is the two bulls of the Liberal Party, the people who've in a sense defined or personified a long-term battle in the Liberal Party would both be gone.
At Manly Market over Easter, not everyone's buying the Vote Tony Out message.
Why would you vote Tony out? Obviously you want death duties, you want the GetUp and the unions to run ragged over the top of the what's going on at the moment. Crazy.
What do you like about Tony?
Hey? I'm not worried about Tony. I don't particularly know him, and it's not a matter of whether I like him or not. It's just that I object to what's going on with the lies that Labor are spreading at the moment with Bill Shorten. I think it's an absolute fruitcake. I've fought for this country, and it saddens me to see what's happening with the politics at the moment.
I'm a Tony Abbott supporter because I feel Zali has just come along, great Olympian. I just don't believe that she knows enough about the area and what really does appeal to people. And personally, I could be very wrong, I don't like the backup of GetUp and all of the... If she came in a lot earlier into the program, I think it's all just to oust Tony Abbott, and I just think it's nasty.
On Anzac Day, Tony Abbott reports for duty as the local member at the Harbord Diggers.
It is right that we are here, 104 years after the first Anzac Day, to honour the service and sacrifices of all who have served our country in the armed forces, and to rededicate ourselves.
Abbott's in his element, and he's buoyed by support in the crowd.
We must always remember them. I still regard myself as the underdog because GetUp and covert Labor Party operatives, the unions, are putting a hell of a lot of effort into this seat. But the mood on the ground, I think, is better, and so as long as we can keep things up, I remain quietly confident.
And why do you think the mood is improving?
I think once the election was called and the unofficial campaign became an official campaign, people started to focus on who do they want in government in Canberra. And inevitably, if you are part of a government which hasn't been perfect but which has, on balance, been good, I think that starts to reflect some credit on you.
Thursday morning, the 2nd of May, and this election campaign now is getting very nasty and very dirty. We've uncovered a dirty tricks campaign this morning that has swept across
the seat of Warringah, where the former Prime Minister Tony Abbott, who holds that seat by 11%, is attempting to be re-elected. Offensive posters carrying swear words that we'd rather not mention have been plastered all along a busy traffic.
2 weeks from polling day, the attacks on Abbott get even more personal.
I think this is a new nastiness in Australian politics. Now, I'm not for a second suggesting that any of the candidates in Warringah are somehow doing this, but it is a fact that there are some pretty nasty people who want change here in Warringah, and I say to all the decent people in Australia, if you want to try to lift the tone of our public life and to lift the quality of our national conversation, don't in any way give aid and comfort to these nasty elements.
The posters target Abbott's position on climate change and same-sex marriage.
I think there's a confusion between a person's position on a particular issue and hating the person personally. They're two different things.
After weeks of shadow boxing, the two contenders go head-to-head for the only time in the campaign. Their supporters are out in force.
Lively crowd, isn't it, eh?
Good afternoon and welcome to the Sky News Manly Daily Warringah debate. You do think Labor has a better position than the Liberals when it comes to climate change?
Of course.
And it's your number one issue in this campaign?
It is.
Climate change is the most important issue. That means presumably that you would prefer a Labor government to a Liberal one.
I want a bipartisan approach to our children's future. That is what I want, and many people want, a bipartisan approach to our children's future so that they have a planet that they can live in and work in.
Are you feeling confident about making it?
I am feeling that there's an election to win, and I am determined to do whatever I can to ensure that the Morrison government is returned.
Tony! 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 Tony!
Let's head to the beach.
With election day less than a fortnight away, the anti-Abbott forces are growing more confident. Around 1,000 people have turned out to march.
And I believe today that we can win the primary vote, and that at 7:30 on election eve, Anthony Green will say Warringah is done. This time, even the Liberal Party people now, they're ready to get rid of Tony. And the way we do it is, we vote 1 for Zali, we vote 10 for Tony, we fill in all the boxes, and we start buying champagne tomorrow. If you don't drink champagne, buy kombucha.
I've lived here all my life. I've never seen anything like this before. It's got to make a difference. The whole nation's watching Warringah, everyone's aware of it, and really thinking that their vote is going to matter.
At the federal Liberal launch in Melbourne, Tony Abbott and Malcolm Turnbull are both absent as the party seeks to put its leadership battles behind it.
So I say to Australians, do not allow Labor's reckless spending to start. Vote Liberal and Nationals next Saturday.
Scott Morrison has stayed away from Warringah, but John Howard ventures out to lend a hand. In the final week of the campaign, polling suggests Warringah is neck and neck. The Liberals are hoping John Howard's star power will help Abbott across the line.
How important, Mr Howard, is it for the future of the Liberal Party that Mr Abbott is returned?
Well, because this is a seat of Warringah is traditionally a Liberal seat, and this is going to be a very tight election, we all know that, and we can't afford to lose any seats, and on top of that, you have the extraordinary experience and talent and ability of Mr Abbott, so it's very important that the Liberal Party, through Tony Abbott, hold the seat of Warringah, and that's your one question.
Thank you very much.
With 5 days to the election, the final frenetic campaigning is well underway. From here in the seat of Warringah, where...
This is about people coming together to say we've got to change everything.
Issue number one on people's minds.
We've got to change the politics, the change we live, and I think that, you know, Tony Abbott's time in politics has come and gone.
If Tony gets knocked off, and he goes to something else. But he's going to fight the good fight, and my own view is that he'll be successful and about at the same level as he was last election.
So you're right, it's been very negative. It's unusual, not what I've seen before.
One of many low moments in the campaign for former Prime Minister Tony Abbott's seat at Warringah.
Judgment Day has arrived, and the contest for Warringah is nearing the end.
How are you feeling?
Well, I'll take my mood from the people I'm talking to, and they are confident for change.
Democracy bacon and egg roll.
Oh, we're in the wrong queue, are we?
Yeah.
Oh, my
yeah,
God.
I'm not even voting.
I'm really proud because I think we've all put in a lot of work, but more importantly, it's been the reaction from the electorate and so many people around Warringah and outside Warringah, and we have had people contact us from all over Australia, and it's just so humbling, really, to have so many people there to support us and to really be that voice for change, and I think that reinforces for me that it's the right thing to do.
Hi, Tony. That's okay. Good to see you. You too, mate. Best of luck. Fingers crossed. Thank you. Thank you.
You still believe you can win?
Yes, I do. In fact, I have detected strong support on the ground. Now, obviously, that's very subjective, and maybe some people are just being polite, and maybe I'm going to be dreadfully disappointed at 9 o'clock tonight.
Thanks for being with us. I'm Lee Sales. This election, Scott Morrison and Bill Shorten are offering voters the starkest choice in a generation.
Now, Mr Abbott, we know, is in a private boardroom upstairs at the moment. He will be watching these numbers, shaking his head in disbelief.
Tony Abbott's election night quickly turned sour.
The Liberal vote is down 13.6%. If that trend continues, Tony Abbott will be under 40% at the end of the night and cannot possibly win that seat. But we've got more counting to come, but those are really bad figures early on for Tony Abbott.
My prediction is that this thing's going to be over early and we're going to be partying.
Less than 2 hours into the count, the former Prime Minister's fate is sealed.
We have some breaking news from Anthony Green.
We've got 18.5% counted. You know, in every election I've ever covered, that trend does not turn around. That's why we're prepared to say that. Warringah has been won by the independent Zali Steggall.
I was crying. So excited. We knew we could do it, but just being here, the excitement, the vibe is just amazing. I had no idea it would be called this early. We're so excited. This is an amazing result.
There's so many people involved, but it's a massive community effort.
The old affiliation to political brands like Liberal and Labor are actually breaking down. And what tonight's result proves is that you need to make sure that you represent the values that your community cares for. And I think tonight's result is a strong vindication for all of those community groups who believed in representing a socially progressive view of the Liberal Party.
I will be a climate leader for you. The new government to account and make sure we take action on climate change.
At Manly Leagues Club, Tony Abbott delivers the final speech of his political career. It's the end of an era.
I always knew it was going to be tough here in Warringah. And I can't say that it doesn't hurt to lose. But I decided back then in October of last year that if I had to lose, so be it. I'd rather be a loser than a quitter. Yeah. It's often said that all public lives end badly, but I'm certainly not going to let one bad day spoil 25 great years.
I played a couple of halves of rugby for Manly on the weekend, and it wasn't so great for the facial good looks, but anyway.
So congratulations, Tony. We're delighted to be here. And might get you to say a few words.
If I can raise the Liberal torch high, it's only because you, all of you, are holding me up. Just as I said, there's nothing wrong with the Australian people. There is nothing wrong with the Liberal Party's rank and file. So let's light a torch today, a golden torch that will burn bright throughout our local area and, who knows, just might be seen right round this big brown land. Thank you very much.
Tony has altered the political scene. There's no doubt about it. There's no disrespect to anybody else. But if you don't recognise that, well, you don't recognise anything about Australian politics.